DJ, what's up, brother?
My man, Jay, happy to be here, brother. What's going on?
I am super super excited to kick this off and like have this conversation with you. Um, and I know we were just talking a little bit about like what I'm doing and why I'm creating these conversations. I guess I'll just share to like set the stage and then get you introduced and just dive in and have a really impactful conversation. But yeah, I mean, for me, this is really like this that are burning like in my life right now, or is this idea of like stoking the fire in our heart and awakening the sleeping soul, whatever that means to anybody. For me, it's like a way of living and a way of going beyond what's normal, like in society, in culture, in um, wherever you spend your time. And yeah, and my intention with these conversations is to just like bring in people in my life who I'm having these conversations with and who have had really powerful experiences with and who like inspire the shit out of me. Um, Not only like what they're doing and the impact they're having, but like how they show up as husbands, wives, um, fathers, mothers, like the stuff that really matters. And I think that's like the core of this is like really like having a conversation that people hear like from us, like what matters. And that through that lens, we can inspire people to really like do an exploration of what matters to them so that they can actually start to really like just see for themselves like how would they create that and live in alignment with things that are deeply meaningful for themselves. So yeah, man, that's what we're here to do. So without further ado, I know we both share similar backgrounds, like military, um, childhood experiences, um, leadership, performance based coaching now. But yeah, man, I'd love to just like for anyone listening, if you could just share a little bit about like who you are and what you've been up to.
Mm. So who I am on like a deep level or on
Who you are on a deep level, dude. Yeah.
oh boy, right into it, right? Well,
Yeah.
I'm a being having a human experience, right? Um I'm a soul giving life and energy to a meat suit. That meat suit though, people call it DJ. DJ has a history. Joking around kind of, as you know, humor is wonderful. But yeah, I first of all, just thanks for having me on, and thanks for doing this series because I think it's so important. I think you alluded to something earlier that's just it's important. People have podcasts sometimes, have conversations, and their whole goal is I think a lot of times is kind of maybe ego driven a little bit, right? Like let me get the biggest, most well-known guest I can have on, to bring attention to me or whatnot, and not bad, not wrong, but your intention here is to have heart soul conversations with humans that you have a connection with and that and I think that's beautiful because I think I know for a fact, I mean, wisdom is available in every human being if you look for it and if you have deep conversations. And I don't care if it's someone that's on the red carpet or someone that lives under a carpet in an alley. There is wisdom in everyone. And when you're talking soul to soul, that wisdom reveals itself. And I think this is going to be a really cool series because people can realize, hey, I don't need to listen. I don't need to only get value from people that are well known. I can get value from anyone. And I think when we speak heart to heart, soul to soul, folks that are listening are, part of them that might be sleeping, that sleeping soul might be awakened a little bit because they might hear something that's true for them or that they're curious about. So anyways, I went off track a little bit, but thanks for doing this. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. But name's DJ. I live in Northeast Florida now, Team Dolan, my family. And I, formerly was a collegiate athlete, did a little bit of boxing after college. I served in the military as a non-commissioned commissioned officer. served in state and federal law enforcement, about 16 years, 10 of which was on a tactical team as well as a violent fugitive detective with the Marshals. My wife and I own and operate a couple preschools with the mission of spreading love, the love of life, the love of others, and the love of learning, in that order. I've been doing coaching, consulting the last couple of years, leadership development the last about 11 years. And I've realized kind of in my journey so far, I feel at my best when I'm empowering and elevating and helping people, being part of a solution as opposed to, reacting to a problem. Which what I thought was my dream job back in the day of getting the most violent people I could find and solving crimes and stuff. It's such an important job, but for me, I felt like constantly I was being part of a solution, reacting to a solution as opposed to being proactively part. Reacting to a problem as opposed to being part of creating a solution. And I think when we can wake each other up, wake that sleeping soul, inspire folks, empower folks with skills to authentically be themselves and to lead from their heart. I think that's how we're going to create a better world. And so, like you, I am inspired and happy to do that one conversation at a time. And hey, what a better place to have this conversation right now, and to see what comes up for us.
Yeah. Thanks for all that. So many places to go. You know what I actually want to explore right now is like, can you tell people more about like what it means, what Team Dolan means?
What Team Dolan means? Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
it's something that's always like energized me and inspired me is like seeing your dedication to that uh concept. But I want people to like feel and hear what that means to you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Go on.
Jason. Yeah. So Team Dolan, right? I think starting leadership development as a consultant leader about 11 years ago, I got to pull from my experience with being part of a team, right? Being on a sports team or military team or whatnot, and got to pull like kind of the gold nuggets out of that and then help, collegiate, professional, high school teams and corporations take some of that gold and help them, build their teams out so that they are, feel like they're, not just high performing, but whole teams and whatnot. And then I realized, shoot, what is a team? It's multiple humans that come together to serve with each other, to be great teammates, to lead one another for some higher cause. And I used to think of, why is this only important? Why do we only talk about this with sports or with military or with business? And I think of what is the most important team that we have. And I would assert for me, after starting my team, having my family, it's your family. And so I was thinking about this. I'm like, I look around and we're constantly, we're going to the Super Bowl and we're cheering on sports teams every week, and we're watching screens and watching other people compete. And how many of us are missing the opportunity to serve our team at home, the team that relies on us, that needs us. And so for me, I think of what is the most important team to me, and it's Team Dolan. And so we're corny as heck, right? Probably. And we named ourselves Team Dolan. We refer to ourselves as teammates. And, Jen and I are the co-captains right now, and Savannah, Jack, and Charlie are, they're our teammates. They're not less than, they're just little teammates. They're not leaders. They don't lead Team Dolan yet, but they learning how to lead themselves. And, so yeah, everything we do, the kids say teammates, and it definitely I could see it being a bit corny to folks, but man, we talk about believing it to our heart. We do. And so that's how Team Dolan was kind of started.
Yeah. Well, like corny or not, like to me, there's like so much fun in play and how you create that experience as a leader, like in your family. And we always are so caught up on like how serious life can get, and that's what I like heard in like your commitment in what you generate around this idea of like being a team as a family. Super powerful. And like the other piece is like a real introspection of like what it means. We just like get married, have kids, and like go through the motions based on all of these past experiences that we had as kids. Like, this is what it's supposed to be like to be married. This is how a family looks. But like what I hear and what you shared is actually like, well, okay, that's how it was, but how do I actually want to be? How do I want to relate to my family? And how do I want to create that experience? It can be any way that I want. And it's such a cool exploration of like what we can create when we're willing to look at like, what do we want something to mean, and how do we want it to exist for ourselves? So yeah, thanks for bottling that.
What came up as you just said that, Jay, was just
Yeah.
like intentionality. Like, and I feel like that's the word that just came up on my mental screen as you're talking, is with intention. And that's been fun to play with, right? Is specifically like figuring exactly what you think you want, right? And then trying to play with that, and then learn and grow, and see what works for you, see what doesn't. Like for the Team Dolan piece, our mission, if you ask the kids, is to spread love in the world. And we learn, that has to be, in order to spread love, you have to have an infinite supply of it. So the self-love piece is so important, right? Learning, how to love ourselves regardless of what we do or how we behave. Be proud of ourselves, be proud of each other when we're being our best and we're doing our best, but always falling back on that safety of love unconditionally. And so that's been cool to play with, because I think now in the professional side of the house, I think that's what can really transform people and teams, is if you start treating that, you bringing that love in, that unconditional love in on the more serious side of the house, right? Where you normally wouldn't look at it like that. So it's fun to kind of play with too. And I know that's right up, it's right in the core of how you see the world, and how you train leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. The piece that jumped out was like, self-love. And it's like, for so much of my life, that would have been such a bullshit comment. Like, DJ, take your self-love and like fuck off. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm not into that. Right. And it's funny because like the depth of my transformational work has been like 99% of like cultivating myself and realizing that like I am the thing that can or can't be in the way, and like what it actually looks like to create a new, to go back to the concept of like, how do we relate to our family? Like, how do I relate to myself? And if I really started to look back at like my whole trajectory of, even when I was, achieving success as like a high school athlete, a student athlete in college, in the Marine Corps, it's like I was actually still never relating to myself as like the best, as great as like my highest potential, and like from any sense of love. I'm like, damn, the impact of that experience. And what I've found is like, like when we when we do that work and can cultivate that relationship, forget about our experience. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like the sense of peace that I can create, the joy that I get to experience, and a totally different shift in how I experience life. But how I'm able to like love my wife, how I'm able to love my kids, like it's so much more impactful. And there's like, it's just an experience. I'm like, like I can sit there and like look at my kids and generate enough presence and love to like bring myself to tears. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's what this work is about. Like, what else matters? And it's a cool transition for like, I'll share quickly like my experience of getting connected with you. And it was like, a mutual friend of ours linked us up. He linked up everybody. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, he's, I heard you on this similar path. And like in that moment, I was just like, the way we the way we connected, and I don't even know at that time if I could have named it, because that was before I'd even like I had done a lot of work, but I hadn't even like dove into the depths of like my transformational work. And this is three years later now, maybe longer. But it was this experience of like talking, like, I don't know, they use the term wavelength, but like we were speaking a language that we both probably didn't know how to speak at the time. And it was this language of like heart, and it was the language of love. But like here were two men like trying to like squeeze it out of our body. But it was like we both saw a future and a possibility, and how we could show up in the world, how we could impact people, and like what we could actually create like for ourselves. Like, but that was my experience, and it's been like how we've connected, and we've been this like uh this mechanism of support as we like put ourselves out there and be with our fears and all that. But what was your experience of that? And I'm curious too, like how it's evolved.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me back to that moment, because what came up for me was like, it well, I think this the saying of like, when you can authentically be yourself, like when you can be vulnerable, like be yourself to and through vulnerability, you give others the permission to be the same, and almost like the nudge to do so. And I think you and I, our first conversation, it was almost like that. It's like our ego is so calcified of like who we should be, right? You should be hard, you should be a high performer, like we should be this and tough and military, all the things, right? And like masculine, and like this like mask. And when we first started talking, it was almost like that's here, and then the soul is like, hey, like says something, right? Like, hey, you there too? And then like hides behind the ego again. And then the other person's like, soul is like, oh shoot, I recognize that. Oh well, yeah, let me talk for a second. And comes out here. And then you can start like playing with it a little bit, right? Where you're like, shit, this isn't a guy that's just saying what he thinks he needs to say to be relevant, or to be tough, or to be cool, or to be whatever we learn, growing up. And yeah, so that was really cool, because you see that. And for me, man, life is too short. Like you've come close to death plenty of times. I have plenty of times. And before having kids, it was a little different. Now, especially, I realize time is our most valuable asset, and I don't want to spend it talking ego to ego. I want to talk soul to soul. I want to talk heart to heart. I want to make sure that, we can just squeeze every last inch of beauty out of life for the short time that we have here, in these meat suits. Right. So that was really cool for me, is to meet someone that I really felt like saw me, and that I could see them. And it wasn't, nothing against a lot of folks I go into, coaching training with, or psychology training with, or whatnot, but I'm usually an oddball. I'm the, I'm the big bearded, they see a military, they're like, oh, like, and then they realize that, hey, I'm just a soul coming through here to learn, curious, full of love, want to spread love, and not what they maybe thought I was. And so it's cool to connect with someone else that has a similar background, but has realized that their soul has awoken a little bit, and that is driven, heart driven. If that, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's the thing that like comes up for me is it's like it's a different form of courage, like in our world, right? Like we did all the things that were like deemed courageous, whatever, whether it was like doing great work in sports and putting yourself out there, train like an animal, and play in the tough games, get hit, go into the military, and like that type of courage, like to me. And I even think about like some of the experiences of like being in firefights, and running through minefields, and I'm like, that was courageous, and like a willingness to go put our lives on the line. But it doesn't actually speak to like the courage that I'm hearing and what you just shared, which is like the courage of being our heart, and like all the love that you start to like connect and feel, um and that you don't even know what to, at least this is like my experience, like, oh shit, like I am so much love and heart, and like what do I even do with that? So it's like the courage to like explore that space and to go be, to be love and to give love and to share and to talk about it. And it's like a different type of courage. And David White, he always like resonates for me. Poet. He talks about like he has this beautiful dialogue on courage, and it's he ties it back to like the root of the word core, like of the heart, and like that's what I hear in what you just shared. And I mean, fuck, man, for me, it's like I always just come back to like what else could matter. Um, and I know we got to do all the things, right? We got to make money for our family. We got to um, pay bills, like, go to whatever. But like, I don't know what else really matters. And I know you've been like navigating that space, but like, how do you think about that in like terms of we both got 3 little kids and we're trying to build businesses, and we're also like deeply, deeply, deeply committed to being like the best husband we can be for our wives, and like really showing up as a leader and being responsible for that experience, and being fathers who are not I don't want to say who are not, just fathers who are like totally committed to to creating a different experience than we had. And whether that matters or not, it's just one that's like rooted in love and connection. And yeah, so how do you like sit with that? Like how do we be it all? And what's that like for you right now?
Wow. That's a powerful question, man. So yeah, I think it's how to be it all, what comes up for me as I'm reflecting on this is in order to be selfless, we have to be self-full.
Yeah, I love
And
that. I've seen you post that. I bring it to my clients.
yeah,
Thanks for bringing that in. Yeah.
yeah, and it's power. I mean, it's just something to remind. It's a reminder, right? Like you think of like single moms, you think of folks who much like us that we want to. I feel like I feel like there's such this major burden on my shoulders to help heal folks and make this place better before I leave. And I don't know if I put that on myself or whatnot, but I realize that easily if I'm not intentional, if I don't have self-discipline and planning, that I can easily burn myself out in service of being selfless. And then I reflect on how selfish that is to give so much of myself, mind, body, soul, that I burn myself out. And then how much can I give at that point? How much can I give to my kids and my wife or my clients or the world and so it's I think it's important to reflect on. In order to be selfless, we have to be self-full. Now let's break it down like strategically, tactically. What are we, right? I think, as far as the well-being is concerned, I look at, we have look at buckets. We have like the spiritual bucket, right? This is purpose. This is for me mindfulness. This is being the awareness, the observer of the activity of the mind and what's going on. So that's one bucket. Another bucket we have physical, right? So this is for me, it's physical fitness, nutrition, sleep. It's exercise, recovery. It's emotional well-being. For me, emotions are physical, right? So emotional well-being, acceptance of those, awareness and acceptance of what's showing up there, to take care of that bucket. Another bucket's mindset. So, the what's going on in the mind, and the spiritual bucket helps me become aware of that a little bit. But how am I look at my mind as like a software program. And how am I, or more of like an operating system. And the software within the operating system for me is beliefs and intentions in life. So how am I in that in that firm, in that bucket? Am I clear on my beliefs? Am I living my beliefs? Do I have clear intentions on how I want to live, how I want to serve? And then the last two buckets for me are relationships. and then, the financial bucket. So relationships, I think, is for me is one of the most important. But I think the relationship we have with ourselves is foundational to all of our rest of our relationships, to include our kids. And so those first three buckets are so important, right? The mind, body, soul, to make sure that I'm nurturing those, not letting those buckets get completely dry, empty. Sometimes they're going to get low, but how can I make sure I'm putting water in that bucket so that I can show up for my relationships and be able to perform and add value to the world in order to receive the financial means back that you're mentioning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think I've often like seen it and like played with it in that same way. I'm like, as you're speaking that, I'm like, I've been practicing like seeing it all through like a spiritual lens of like everything is actually like a practice of spirituality, of like love, acceptance, of like you just said, like, yeah, buckets are going to be low. Cool. Can I accept where I'm at? And can I still like really look at how am I still living in alignment with whatever those commitments are at that moment? But because for a long time, it was like this exploration of what does spirituality even mean to me, which is like totally new in the last few years. I grew up with a, fucked up, weird experience as Catholic kid going to Sunday school. Like we all hated it. Everyone was screaming, crying. We had to go. It was bizarre, the whole thing in the church. Nothing against religion, just like that was my experience of it as a kid. And then now I'm like, oh, this is totally different. This like path into spirituality, and it's like a playground to play life through a lens that's like so much more empowering. Where I'm like, my relationship with my wife, because like for a long time I'm like looking at just like everything we go try to like seek and find like how am I going to become spiritual, and all this stuff that I would do in my meditation practices and what I read and contemplate and work I do in plant medicine space. But it's like everything is actually our spiritual path. It's like my relationship with my wife, like I was saying, like that's like a practice of like, how can I choose from love and not fear in this moment? How can I respond from love? How can I do the work to like just accept her for who she is and where she's at? And I can only do that if I do the work to like accept where I am and where I'm at. But yeah, it's an interesting like exploration. And I guess like the piece I want to like tie home is like none of it really matters. It's like what I hear when you share is it's like your approach to being willing to commit to the buckets that actually fuel you, so you can show up like as a man who is modeling like what it means to like take care of ourselves and be there for our family and like love our family. And we can actually have all these commitments to ourselves that actually fuel that experience we want to create for our kids and our wives.
That's beautiful. And I want to just touch on the spirituality piece, because I couldn't agree more. I think as I reflect back, I feel like with the buckets, I was getting, like specifically tactical, right? Because when you said before, there's going to be people listening to this right now that are like, what are they talking about? Self-love, awareness, spirituality. Like, what are they even talking about? So I think I dipped back into that, like speaking the like ego talk a little bit of like specific buckets, but I love the mentality of everything is spiritual, because I couldn't align with that more. Right. I think, life is going to, like, again, present us with challenges and adversities in different forms until we learn that lesson, until our spirit learns that lesson. And I think, for me, why one time I realized that, mindfulness for me, for example, it used to be just a practice, like training in the gym or whatnot. Now it turns to the point where mindfulness meditation is life itself. Life is meditation. It's how quickly can I shift between the two selves, like the self as content, like the self as like the thinking and what's happening and all the thing, and then shift to the self as context, like the spiritual self that is observing and aware of the mental activity, the emotional activity, the circumstances of life, the relationship, like all the things. And that's that's a kind of fun game, right? Of like, can I become aware of that I'm driven by this emotion, this painful emotion, or driven by this goal, or if I'm pushing that which I don't want in life away from me experientially, or am I pulling it closer to me? The things I really think I love and want, am I like gripping them or whatnot? And that's been a fun practice and a powerful one of, okay, can I be aware of that and go to that self as context, that container, that spiritual awareness piece that's looking at that all. And then from there, I feel like there's so much power where I can either choose to continue with the content that I'm kind of fused with in that moment, or be like, hey, that's really kind of out of alignment of my values and my truth of who I want to be, who I think I want to be. Like, so can I, pivot and then, try to move authentically this way and try to kind of read that energy. And a lot of this doesn't make sense to the mind. It just doesn't. Right. But that's a beautiful way to put it, Jason, that like, I think looking through not just spirituality as a bucket, but spirituality as the all encompassing lens of all of the buckets.
Yeah. And that's the piece that I think throws at least me off, like a lot of us, and even like exploring this or like touching it in any way, is like, we always need to know, right? We always need to know the decisions we make are going to like work out. It's going to be successful. We know what's on the other end. There's this element of certainty. So when you go down this path, it's like what you just said, there's this, I don't know what the hell this is about. There's this mystery, and it's like the embrace of that, which is like for me, a beautiful analogy to bring into just life of like, I don't know like how this thing's going to unfold. I can do my work and I'm deeply committed to being in process in all these different areas. But, to use like a mental performance terminology, like process over outcome, that's true. And that's like, they're all directly connected. And it makes me think of like the challenge that I've struggled in a lot of like my work, and what I see for the impact that I want to have is like, how do you connect these dots? Because like everyone's obsessed with high performance, everyone's obsessed with results at work, everyone's obsessed with, and these are generalizations, I got it, but like from my experience and the people that I've been around and what I see, that's my experience. As a culture, we're obsessed with all these things, and to what end? So how do we, and I think we share this in our work, like, how do we support people and empower them to go generate like all sorts of material success in their life, but actually have them connect it to like what for, and like why are we creating what we're creating, and like, and also like shine a light on, why we do this, why we go out to create all these things, like what really does matter. And if we can get people clear to like what matters in their life and support them in aligning and living a life that is like that, like what they go and do and who they're being on a daily basis actually like connects to that commitment. So like we say we care about our family and we want to be a great dad, yet like I'm working all the time and I'm never present and always on my phone, and I can't even be with my kids. So yeah, I'm curious like how you approach that and how you think about like that blend of like high performance, the obsession with all the things, and then just like bringing people to this space of what matters, and then supporting them and creating a life that actually like fills all their buckets that matter to them while they're here.
Oh man, this is deep. So one thing that came up as you're talking about the dots, connecting the dots, and I heard unknown. And from my experience, one of the biggest fears we have as a species is the fear of the unknown. There's a part of us that always wants to know what's going to happen. Now that's going to be obviously going to cause friction for us because none of us know what's going to happen. I know the weathermen don't know; they're guessing, right? There's not a scientist in the world that can tell you with absolute certainty what they're saying is absolutely true. It's all hypothesis. It's guessing. We're all guessing. The present moment is so powerful because for me, it's not a place. It's a blip of time. It's a space where the the future becomes the past,
Mm.
like in an instant. It just flows, and life is flow. And so if we can figure out, in every sense, if we can figure out how to become aware of and accept that flow in real time, like right now in our body, we have cells dying or being transformed, and we have other cells transforming and energies transformed, and it's just flowing. Life experiences flow. Like the water flows down a creek. That's why I have these things back there, reminds me of that flow. So learning how to accept in real time what we observe showing up. My guiding principles for my mindset are align, believe, compete. And align and compete, I'll talk about real quick. So align for me is to become aware of and accept in real time as fluidly as possible. Can I become aware of what's happening around me, the circumstances, the stories that my mind attaches to those circumstances? Can I become aware of what's showing up inside of me, thoughts, emotions, sensations? Can I, in real time, try to close as possible accept what I have no control over?
Yeah.
And what some of us try to do is we try to resist emotions or thoughts that show up within, and that causes so much friction for us, right? Because what we resist persists, they intensify. Emotions are energy in motion. They show up, they want to be in motion, they want to be expressed, they want to flow. And again, when we restrict flow, we cause friction and issues for ourselves. So and this is a kind of a packed answer here, but in real time, can we learn that to align with the flow of life by becoming aware of and accepting it? And then the compete piece is, in this moment, can I compete with my potential to move toward what matters most to me? Because I don't care if I'm fighting to the death in a ring. I'm not competing with the other fighter. I'm competing with my potential to perform in each moment to my highest potential. I'm competing with my potential, never with anybody else. And I think this is true for the highest performers in any game or any battlefield or any profession. I think they get to a point where they're not competing. They're probably always this way. Not always, but probably majority of their career, in this competing with their own potential in the presence of others. And so can we do that? Can we learn to become aware of and accept what shows up in the world within us, emotions, sensations, traumas, whatever it is? Can we learn to become aware of, accept it, process it? Can we become aware of and accept outside of us what we have no control over? And then can we aim our focus on what we do have control over and compete with our potential and move toward what matters most to us in the moment?
Mic drop on so many levels, dude. Like the piece around competition is just like, damn, like I think back on my everything, right? As an athlete in Marine Corps, like got out of there into the corporate world, like in the sales world. And it's like, there's always the obsession. And I think we're ingrained with like competition, not through the lens that you just fucking shared. That's for sure, dude. It's the lens of like, we're always competing with somebody else. And that it disrupts this whole idea of unity, like in the world for ourselves. Like we're always in conflict. And it's just it's a bizarre model. And it's, I think about it in like a corporate lens of like in the sales world. It's just like, it's how every organization a lot of times is like structured. And I get it. There's, mechanisms that it's a big system, but yeah, like we can really just look at there's actually no competition besides what we want for ourselves. And I want to put in this piece around like, especially for growth, for me, like I navigated into this work from a place of like fixing all the things, that not from a place of alignment, right? I was from a place of, it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be so fucking miserable. I shouldn't be stressed. I shouldn't be suffering. I should just know what my path is. I should know what I want to do. It should all be clear. And it's just like, that's not how it is. I was competing to like fix myself and to be like other people that I might have saw something in, or whatever the experience that like really was. But it's like if we can actually create the space to like see ourselves as like whole and perfect, and from that space go explore what do we want more of, where do we want to like move, what do we want to move toward, like to use your language, like yeah, like let's fucking move toward it.
Mm,
But we're not doing it from a place of anything's wrong, we're not running
mm,
away anymore. And it's just a totally different um I think approach that people miss. And right, it's so ingrained in us to compete in the fact that like we can get into this next, like from our childhood, and it's no fault of anyone, like our parents or anybody, but like we are ingrained that there's something wrong with us. We're not good enough. We're not, whatever that story might be for a specific individual. My story is like I was never fucking good enough. And it pushed me and it drove me, but it also fucking made me crazy. And sport wasn't fun a lot of the times. I was like, shit, man, I cried more than I could like I cried every time I played a fucking game. I don't think that's the experience like that I want my kids to have.
mm,
Um,
dude.
yeah.
That's it's so it's so rich, Jason. I love your energy. It's so authentic and pure, and this is such an important conversation. The competition piece, right? And one thing when I learned the origins of the word compete, I believe it was paraphrasing, but it was to strive and to strain with for the betterment of all. And if you think of the Olympics, we're the species that we're in
Mm,
the world. If you zoom out, go to the space and look at the world, and it's just this island in the middle of an infinite dark ocean, and there's one tribe on that island is our species. Right now, I'm not advocating that we should all be centrally led. I think the future is when we all learn how to lead ourselves. We do it together, have the sovereignty and freedom to do it together. I think that's what we need to do. More people need to wake up and learn how to lead themselves. Um, but the systems aren't in place for that to happen yet. But back to the original, the Olympics, we send everybody to compete and to strive and to strain with the betterment of all.
mm,
But we have this kind of like bastardized, I think, mainstream look at competition. Like you said, it's I can't win unless you lose. I
mm,
can't be worthy unless I'm better than you. And it's this comparison of like, I need to not only win, but I need to beat you
mm,
down. I need to put my foot on your chest. I need to put my hands up in the air. I need to go after people you care about. Like this kind of dark side of the ego. Um, and coming full circle though, I think Ryan Holiday has a book, Ego is the Enemy, and people are like, oh, the
mm.
ego, gonna kill the ego. And no, that's
Yeah.
more division,
Yeah.
right? Because the ego
Yeah.
is part of us, and the ego is, I would assert,
That's
is
like
like,
right. That feeds right into it shouldn't be.
yeah,
It's
it
like,
shouldn't be there.
yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's a bad part, and it's the lack of compassion that is really dividing us. And I think that illusion of separation that we have as a species, and then we have the same one within, the illusion of separation of like that ego's bad. It's part of me. I need to get rid of it. Well, if you're trying to kill a part of you, like it's going to be a bad day, right? It's going to be a tough life. So I like to look at the ego that drives a lot of that lack. I think the source of the I'm not good enough, the source of we need more, the source of you're better than or less than or whatever. That's a little scared childlike part of us that I believe
Mm,
was formed in our formative years to try to help us survive the social matrix we were born into of
mm,
um trying to seek love, but it's really through validation of performance. I have a very similar background to you with the performance thing. My biggest influences as men on me was mainstream, kind of media, watching TV or watching movies or seeing the
yeah.
action hero or seeing the athlete and being like, okay, I have to be that in order to be enough. So I have to perform. I
Mm,
have to be that. So one thing you said earlier, which really like struck a chord with me, was like being this high performance guy, which I know you were. You never thought you were good though. It was almost like your inner critic, your ego was saying, you better be number one just to be price of admission to be good enough in this world. Not that you're
mm,
great. It's like, you better finish, you better be a high performer, you better crush this thing just so I can allow you for this moment to be here,
mm.
not to be celebrated in any way, just to be good enough to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And as men, we carry this, like we allow the ego to kind of be in the control center. We're going to be constantly trying to be perfect, and anything less than that is like we're like subjecting ourselves to spiritual death, right? In some way, like we're not good enough, we're not here, we're not. And what an exhausting way to live, and how many of us are living that way.
Yeah. Exhausting is a powerful word, man. It's like, yeah, I can't tell you how many conversations you connect with someone and it's just full of like the stress and the anxious to the anxiety, whatever it is all a testament to what you're talking about. And just, for part of this conversation might be to like expose people to this path of liberation that we can actually free ourselves from and look at how we're creating all of our own stress. Like we can actually create a new experience. And I want to like dive in on what you're just talking about, because I think I mean, it's a piece that I'm playing with right now of like, through my work, right? In my healing work, I didn't even know, like I knew my childhood I had, experiences of, my parents fought a lot, fucking screaming at each other. And I was like, had to be with that energy. And it was like scary fucking energy. It was violent. My dad was like super hard on me. Um, also violent at times, had like a really bad temper. And he was like the most present father like imaginable. He was like with me every second, training me, teaching me. Um, but that to like tie this conversation, and I've been thinking a lot about like, okay, cool. No one really wants to talk about inner child work, right? And like a lot of the spaces that we're in. Yet I have it as like this like deep connection to like how we show up as leaders in the world. Because what you just said was like, if we don't know how we're actually still responding as children in the office, like I've caught myself like in conflict with my wife being like, dude, that's like a 10-year-old version of you responding like so defensive but it's from this place of like, damn, that kid is still suffering inside of me. But I would love to hear like how you think about that work becoming like normal, and people actually seeing that like and it doesn't have to do with trauma, right? Trauma, big T, little t. um it's more like it could be conditioning, it could be like just the environment that we're in, whatever our experiences we are shaped who we are. And if we aren't willing to go look at those belief systems and how it's actually affecting how we show up automatically, and how we don't actually have any agency in responding, being response able, then like, damn, that's such an impact to the what we can do as leaders and the impact that we can have. But
Oh,
how do you think about, how do you think about that? And like, I'd love to hear like even in your own evolution as a leader, and like how you show up as a man in the world.
man, I love it. I am but the core, like the kind of work, the lens and framework I look through my work is really like functionality, like present moment, function. What is driving my behavior right now? And it's beliefs, and it's memories, and it's, rules that we come up with ourselves and whatnot. And I think it's important to realize that on camera it can look the same. So what I mean by that, if just like physical fitness, for example, if you and I are both in the gym and we're both doing the same circuit, and what's driving my behavior in that moment is when I was 7, I was called skinny, and the girl liked the strong guy, and whatever it was. And that's been my ego realized that back then, said, all right, well, we got to fix this because we need that external validation. So let's drive you to do all these things so you're not that. Now, what's driving me in that moment is fear. It's a painful emotion. It's that I better do this in order to get that. Like we said before, you better do it in order to be accepted, in order to be validated. And then when I'm validated externally, then I'm good. I'm okay momentarily, but life is flow. Then you're going to do it again, and then again. So
Yeah.
I think asking yourself in any moment, what's my function right now? What's driving me? Because in that same gym, now you're working out, but what's the function of your behavior, what's driving your behavior is that you want to be a vital father. You want to be flexible and fun and give energy to your kid, or you want to perform well in your tournament, or you want to perform well as a CEO, and you know that physical fitness and mental fitness is important. So what's driving your behavior is you're moving toward flourishing, moving toward vitality, toward health, toward what you want, not away from what you don't want. And I would assert the majority of us go through life unconsciously moving away from what we don't want, and very rarely move toward what we do want. And the metaphor that I like to use here is, if you're teaching the kid how to swim, there's two ways to teach them how to, there are two ways that they're going to be meaningful for this conversation on how to teach them how to quickly swim across a river, say. One is you throw them in the water and you say, hey, there are piranhas around you. They're going to bite you unless you get to the other side. So that kid is going to be in a fear response, fight or flight, get across as fast as they can. And then one thing's going to happen. Their ego is going to learn, whoa, wow, that's an effective way to get across fast. So for the rest of my life, I'm going to be fear driven, even though to the detriment of their well-being, to the detriment of their fulfillment, they're going to be fear driven. And that could drive you all the way up the corporate ladder, become CEO, start a business, sell the business, whatever it is, make billions of dollars, all the things that society tells you makes you good enough. Right. And you're a slave on the inside, but you'll get acknowledged for it on the outside. You'll get the accolades, you'll get whatever it is. And this is why I think Jim Carrey said, I wish everyone could become rich and famous so they could see it's not what they want, and they can start figuring out what they do want in life while they're here. And so back to that function piece, asking yourself, and this, you have to become, I call it introspective detective. You have to become, curious and audit everything. Like, not from a place of like, you want to find what's wrong with your beliefs, but audit everything with curiosity, follow that curiosity, because that's going to lead you on that journey of self-discovery, which is a lifelong journey. There's no like, hey, I've discovered exactly who I am. Now I know for sure. It's a lifelong journey. And it's important, I think, to ask yourself, what is my function right now? Am I going for this promotion because I want to be able to influence more people and lead more, or be able to make more for my family for whatever reason, XYZ, but I'm going to actually spend time with them too? Or am I doing it so that I think that's the next rung I need to do in order to be a good boy in this evolution, or a good girl, or whatever? So I come back to that. Really get curious in real time. What is my function? My function right now is I'm connecting with a human being who I love, and I think this conversation is gonna positively add value to the world and influence people. I'm moving toward right now, as opposed to, say, I asked you to come have a talk with me for the thing I'm doing, and you really don't want to do it, but you don't want to let me down, and you're like, okay, I'll do it. You're moving away from, those painful thoughts, emotions, of beliefs, whatever it is, as opposed to moving toward. And I think two things that are going to be affected. It's one, it's how you enjoy the process, because no one's going to enjoy swimming across the water when piranhas are chasing them. Even if they're performing well, they don't enjoy it. And two, I think their performance over time is going to be sustained if it's in joy and play and love and moving toward what they want. And then just to button this up, the second way to swim across a river is to really focus on what's on the other side that you want to get to, and really focus on enjoying the act of moving through the water and being your best and growing, and the process mindedness, as opposed to like, why is it meaningful for me to get across the river? What's over there? And can I enjoy the act of swimming and getting crisp and better at my strokes in the process? So those two things, as opposed to what's behind me chasing me, because they're both great motivators. Just one sustains well-being, fulfillment, and I would assert the good life, and the other one, it might help you succeed materially, but it's probably going to be the very barrier that keeps you from enjoying the life that you deserve. So does that, any of that? I know I kind of went on.
Yeah, no, I love those metaphors are amazing. And I kept thinking as you're talking, like it's about, like, it's us being able to look at the experience that we're having. And it's like, if I'm in this moment having this experience, like, wow, like, what's going on that has me having all the money and being in this position that I've always wanted to be in, and feeling completely empty or feeling stressed and miserable, and that we can actually go from a place of curiosity, like you said, like really do the work to like generate some freedom as to like, okay, how do I want this experience to be? Who would I need to be to create that? Or like maybe there is something that's like has me like out of alignment with what really matters to me. But if we never do that curiosity, we generate these consistent experiences of life that are, I mean, for lack of like any other word, like to point to in our society, it's like suffering. There's so many humans that are suffering, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like there's a path to freedom, and it's like right there within our own process. We oftentimes like don't even, sure, there might be a lot of space for help and getting supported. I have a lot of support in my path, but like we all have access to it is what I'm pointing to. And the other thing is like, you know, I think back to your idea of like the intention of teaching the swim, right? You know, like my father never had like a bad intention for how it went with us, like teaching me how to play baseball and basketball, but it was rooted in like this idea of like, I got to make sure he's the best, or he wanted something from me that maybe didn't align with like what did I actually want. And when we show up from that place, which is like somewhere at its core is fear connected to some of our own experience of like, you know, where we might not have showed up the way we wanted to. And it's like, damn, that is where that root of like, you know, the word that was that always came up for me is like constructive criticism. And it's like, there ain't nothing fucking constructive about this. All it's doing is seeding these beliefs that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, the word that comes up right there that I think it heals so many of us is compassion. And we talk about the ego before. Can we become aware of and have compassion for that ego within? And you talk about your dad, and I have, you know, similar experiences and you know, not exactly the same, but similar as far as like, you know, some adversity as a young man, and the family unit not being what it should be, right? Or like all these different things. And I'm not, you said something before about going to church, like same thing about going to church on holidays and the different things. One thing that always stuck out to me, a message, was the forgive them for they know not what I do. Forgive them for they know not what they do. I think Jesus said that, right, on the cross or whatnot. And again, I'm not religious either. I'm a spiritual being. I see the beauty and the core of all religion is love, is connection, is unity, is lead by example, is this. But that forgive them for they know not what they do. I think even one step further, forgive them for they know not why they do. They're experiencing their life, their relationship with you through their own, mental,
their level
worldview.
of consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their level of consciousness.
That's where they were at, and
100%.
how they,
And that's
it goes back
where
to
the
like
power
not being
is.
able to respond.
Yes.
They were not responding in a way that was in alignment with like whatever they saw for themselves in their highest version, if they even had that thought about
100%.
what it would mean to live into
yes. That. That's their level of consciousness is a perfect way to say it, right? And I think that's the part that if we really get that, that's where we can really be free, and that's where we can really grow. Because I know you've probably said it, I've said it. Hey, I want to build this life for my kids so they don't have to go through what I went through. They don't have to go. You have so many people saying this. I'm doing it for my family. I want to do this so they. And again, back to function. So in that moment, you think it's love, the way you're raising your kids in that moment. If that's your mentality, if I don't want them to go through what I went through, I don't want them to do this, I don't want them to do that, but I'm moving away. I'm not leading with love. It's through the
fear,
it's through the disguise of fear.
Yourself right in.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so that's where the self-awareness comes in. And when you do some of the self-discovery work, when you do that curiosity, inner auditing, introspective detective work, you start realizing, wait a minute, I'm in the gym. Like in a moment ago, I was working out because I didn't work out yesterday, and I'm putting that shame on myself and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to be out of shape and blah, blah, blah. So I'm moving away. I'm in the gym. In that moment, all it takes is, become aware of and accept in real time that function, take a deep breath, and then aim your attention on vitality or whatever it is. Same thing with the kids. Hey, I just yelled at my kid, and that brings up some trauma in me or something like that. And I don't want to do that again. So I start beating myself up. on that in that moment? Can I have awareness and acceptance in real time, deploy self-compassion because I did the best I could in that moment. I can do better now though.
Yeah.
And then can I carry it on? And
yeah, it's not like, I think people will see it as like a cop out. But you can actually be responsible for our actions and touch it with like grace and compassion. And in that process, it breaks the fucking shame and guilt loop. Because otherwise we do what I do when I experienced like rage for the first time with my daughters when they were sick. And it was like, I fucking hated myself for feeling that feeling. And I'm like, who are, like, you are an angry, whatever the judgment was, like, you're an angry asshole. Who, like, what kind of a dad are you? And all that did was create this pattern where I would resist it. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and scarier and scarier, and it sucked. And then all I was doing was, and I was started to bring it into everywhere in my life. Like, well, shit, the shame and the guilt was like, well, if you can't show up as this present, loving, patient, connected father that you want to be, you can't even do that. How can you go be a coach in the world? How can you build a business? How can you love your wife? And it was like, and then that's just like, you're in the darkness at that point. So I love, like, I think it's like something with men, you even hear the word compassion. You're like, how do I cultivate that? And like, I want to share this because it's kind of a cool approach to it. It was like, for me, like, being able, and I want to bring this in too, because I think it comes up a lot where if you bring up childhood, people automatically don't want to say anything like bad about their parents naturally, right? Like, they raised us, they did a lot for us oftentimes, like, and I have like so much love and respect for my mom and dad. But we can like accept that they did the best that they could and know that we can create a different experience. But for me, it was being able to go back in my healing work and actually like do the work, like, for my dad, like, to touch him with compassion and, in my process, and forgive him and like let him get to experience that, because he never got that. And I can only imagine the pain and the suffering. And I know it, I can't imagine it because I've felt the rage and the anger and like what the experiences of that, of myself. And I'm like, damn, man, no, he didn't want to experience that. That was like him. That was his automatic way of showing up in the world. And he couldn't see a path through it. So like, I was able, through that process of like touching him with compassion and love and like forgiveness, it opened this portal for me to be like, oh shit, I can bring that same kindness and love and like real innocent forgiveness to like the judgments that I have about myself and where I'm not showing up the way I want to. And it was just like, whoa, okay. It was an access point.
What became available to you, Jason, after you did that work, made that?
Yeah, like being able to like truly like give love to my kids. Like, when I sit there like and hold my son at night before I put him to bed, and like I can speak to him what I see in him, like, to like really look and really look with curiosity, like, who were you today? Like, who are you? Like, and to see all the love that he is and to say it, to like let him know that you are love and you are joy. You're so much play, buddy. You're so kind. Like, you're so energetic. You're so wild. Like, you're so fucking awesome, buddy. And as I could give that love to him, I could feel it for myself. I'm like, dude, all the things I'm saying to you, it's just a projection of who I am too. And that's
Beautiful.
like connection.
That's so powerful because back to that self-love, right? Like what I'm seeing, hearing you say is like there was an obstacle, maybe with the relationship you had with dad and doing this discovery work of an obstacle that was almost keeping the flow of that infinite love from flowing in a way, maybe just restricting it, maybe not blocking it completely, but restricting it. And I feel like that's why I asked you what was available to you. And that's a beautiful answer, because I feel like at that point, what was restricted, you did that work, the compassion, the forgiveness, that work. And then all of a sudden now it opened up and that is flowing. Let's go. And now you
Yeah.
can share that with your son. You can share that with your wife and your clients and your daughters. And that's the beautiful part. Because I feel like that, again, that relationship we have with ourselves is foundational to other relationships. And when a powerful example of this from my last career, I read the book, I think Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. I read it a couple times.
I just reread that again
Oh,
recently,
you're kidding.
dude.
Yeah.
So, but,
It,
such
it's
gold, man.
profoundly, it's simple and profound, and it's
Yeah,
beautiful. And
yeah.
the one agreement there, don't take anything personally.
Mm,
Um, and I remember the quote because I love extreme examples. Because I think it makes things fun a little bit. But it said, if someone walks up to you and shoots you in the head, it has
mm.
nothing to do with you. like like
Yeah.
when I first read that, I'm like, what the fuck does that, like, excuse my language, like, what does that mean? How does that mean? Because
Mm,
when I first read that book, I'm a violent fugitive detective. So there are people trying to do that to me. And I'm like, how is that not personal? Like, you know, and then when I had a breakthrough and I really got it. And I really started understanding that. And I think at that point, I'm like,
what
okay,
was there a breakthrough like in your life, or just from that, like
I
that
think
insight
I
generated
think
it?
that insight probably started it
Yeah.
because I really started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, and what I used in law enforcement, I called tactical empathy to find people, because I realized when I first started doing the work, I would read the story, the warrant. I call it a story. I'm
Mm,
reading the story of this, what
mm,
happened. I want to know as much as I
yeah.
can
Oh,
about
that's
what's going
cool.
on, and then I
Yeah.
would say, okay, they did X, Y, Z, and I would be so emotionally driven because how could they do that? Blah blah. They're wrong. They're bad. They're evil. Blah, blah. I want to get them. I want to find them in an alley. I want to whatever, and I realized that like my focus was like this. My flow was
Mm,
restricted. I could only see this and I couldn't
mm,
see the big picture. So what I started doing with that was tactical empathy, like widening lens. I want to know why this person believes what they believe. Not, I'm going to try not to take personally what they allegedly did, but I want to know everything. I want to know what this person's worldview. I want to know why they potentially did all the things and try to learn. And over time, Jason, that like tactical empathy turned to kind of real empathy. I'm like, okay,
mm,
I have compassion, even though this person did horrible things. I have compassion for their
mm,
soul because their soul is pure and it came here pure,
mm,
and they're responsible for the things they did, and they need to be removed, whether it's from the
mm,
earth or from
mm, mm,
society,
mm.
so they don't hurt other people. But I can at the same time have compassion for the energetic being that's behind the suffering that caused the behavior that caused the suffering in the world. And that's what was powerful for me, because I had a few incidents, where I'm fighting for my life. I'm whatever that is, people trying to shoot or stab or hit with cars or whatever else. And um, getting out of that situation with the person being in custody and no one seriously hurt. And I realized that this work started really, showing itself for me when I could almost in real time, pretty quickly, soon after, forgive that person. Um,
Yeah.
and and that was a powerful change for
Mm,
me, because it not only made me better at the job, but it didn't add emotional,
mm,
probably emotional restrictions on the flow that I would have had after, that would have caused more and more issues for
yeah.
me, if that makes sense. So back to that, like,
Yeah.
forgive them,
Yeah.
and then tying in the first thing, forgive them for they don't know what they do, right? With they don't take anything personally. Like, there was kind of overlap for me where it's like in real time, whether it's the person that's trying to hurt me or hurt others, um, they need to be stopped, whatever it is, or behavior needs to
Yeah.
happen. Now I see it with my own kids, with 3-year-olds having doing the best they can, expressing themselves, not knowing how to express their emotion, whatever it is, witching hour,
Mm,
and you're trying to do X, Y, Z, and they're yelling or
mm,
throwing something or hitting their sister. Like, can I in real time, A, have compassion for them? So they're not doing
yeah.
anything personal to me or to others, but B,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
still I can still, you know, um, use my physical meat suit to like remove them from the room and then show love or whatever. So it doesn't have to be completely like, oh, I accept anything, I'm just gonna let them do whatever they want. No, like
yeah.
kindness,
Yeah.
but firm, because they need to learn
Yeah.
boundaries so they can learn that. And but also allow them to become aware of and express the emotions that are showing up, and realize that there's no shame in that. Like, uh,
Yeah.
I'll share one last thing and then I'll stop talking. I'm talking too much here. Is
What's the
the
point,
difference
dude?
the distinguishing thing between shame and guilt. And I think this will resonate with most folks, right? Like shame, there's no use for it in the world. Shame is poison. It's a virus. When the shame alive in you, we see this, like, this is why our criminal justice system doesn't work. This is what all these, when shame is alive in you, it is a direct reflection of your sense of self, your self-worth as a human being. And when you have shame that you're not enough as a truth, and you believe that, you're going to behave like that. And you're never gonna, doesn't matter what you accomplish or achieve, it's never going to be enough if shame is kind of in the system. Now, guilt is super important. Guilt is going to be, it's a little signpost. It's a little alert or a notification that comes up when your perception of your behavior is out of alignment with your values. Now, it's not an absolute truth. You do some work here. But if you decide that, hey, my value is being authentic or whatever, and then you decide to go with the crowd and just talk about your wife because everyone else is talking about their wife, you're going to leave there. You're going to feel kind of shitty. And that's okay. That's guilt. That's saying, hey, my immediate assessment of your behavior just now was that it was out of alignment with your values. Take a look at it. Not absolutely true. Take a look at it, and then you can choose if it is or not. And then you can use that guilt to kind of hone in how you want to show up in the world and move toward. But shame is going to cause more of the same. And I think that's where we have to become aware of is, where is shame alive? Where is guilt alive? Shame is not useful at all. So we got to do some work to kind of dissolve that, realize that it's not absolute truth, but guilt is important. And I think guilt is what's going to really help us now, process of elimination, narrow us down of who we want to be, how we want to show up.
Thanks for bringing that distinction. Super powerful and super just so relevant. Cause like the thing that I heard at the end there was like, guilt is just cool. It's like an acceptance and an access point to where can I forgive myself for whatever the judgment is about how I didn't show up. Cause that's where the guilt comes from. We make some judgment about I'm a shitty husband, I'm a whatever. And we need to go in and do that work to liberate us so that we can be the husband that we want to be, like love, intimate, connection, of service. It has to happen. And the don't take it personal is like, I hope, man, if mothers and fathers can like really hear what you said, like I'm going to like distill it so they didn't like, it gets heard somewhere, because it's so easy to like what our kids do to like take that personal and then react when we're reacting, we're not coming from love and connection and like holding the boundaries. So there's so much gold in that moment, like driving empathy from a place of like, it doesn't even have to come from love in that moment. It can just come from like, okay, what is that person experiencing? Like, what is my 4-year-old experiencing? He's been doing this thing with my wife. We have a wooden salt shaker and he dumps out the whole salt shaker on the floor. And she's, like the natural reaction is, I want to get pissed off because he did this thing to me. He poured the salt on my floor. And it's like, what was his experience? And if we can really pause to like, let that build up and be like, oh, maybe he's super curious and whatever the thing, and just, it allows us space to step in then and respond from love and connection and support them in their process of like learning how to be a human in this world. And like, and it's pretty hard, right? It's like, there's a lot of rules and all this stuff. So yeah, damn dude, thanks for bringing that. And I know we should probably wrap up here. But like I have one last question that just I'm called to ask you, and then let's bring it to a close. What does it mean to be a man for you?
Can I pause for 1 second and just give you one spent round I had from that last piece you just said?
Yeah. Bring it, dude. Yeah.
Because I think it's important, right? Especially parents, but anyone, any leader, right? That in real time, that to me, you said to me, and that me and my wife joke about this all the time. When you ask yourself, what's the function, you get curious, right? In this moment, who's driving? my behavior? What's driving my behavior? What's my function?
Yeah.
Am I moving toward what's matter, what's important to me, or away from what something that's painful or I don't want to experience? And whenever the ego is the one that's driving the function, a lot of time it's going to be to me, to me, to me. They did this to me.
Yeah.
This happened to me. The world to me, to me, to me. It has that kind of victim feeling. So you'll know in that moment, like your soul is never going to say, "Oh, this happened to me." The soul is always going to say, "This happened for us." Now, where's the opportunity for us to grow? Like, there's a lesson here. Like, how do we grow? So those witching hour, man, that's a powerful one, because you can do all this work and then you can still be driven by a dysregulated nervous system, emotions in that moment, because you're like trying to do XYZ and the baby's dumping out the salt and you're like, he knows he's supposed to do that, he's not doing it to me. But in that moment, if when we become that like reactive, what are we? We're two human beings that are moving away from painful thoughts and emotions. And forgive both of us in real time, because we know not what we do, but and in real time deploy compassion, because we're both doing the best we can at our level of consciousness. Now, as adults, what's cool is when you become aware of that, be like, I was just moving away. This is my challenge to everyone listening. When you notice that in real time, become aware of that you were emotionally reactive. Can you deploy self-compassion? Can you hold space for yourself to be human? Give yourself permission to be human. And then choose what's important, most important in that moment. And the one thing that comes up as far as parents goes is connection before correction or redirection. Connection. So can I take a deep breath? Can I hug? After I yelled, can I hug? Can I get down to his level and say, hey bud, I'm sorry for yelling. Daddy was whatever it was. You did XYZ. It was my own thing. I shouldn't have yelled. I should have talked to you. Cause I think that's going to help folks in building that connection, the trust with kids, but also in that self-love work that we all need to do. It's important. So sorry, I just wanted that came
No, dude, I love that. Thanks for putting that in. And it's like, that's the piece right there that you just said. That changes the game, because it forces us to be like, what does this person need right now? Like, what does my son actually need? Like, what's behind the behavior? Like, maybe that is what he needs, me to get on his level and hold him and hug him and tell him he's doing great. It's okay. I love you. And the other thing is, like, we don't have to fucking respond always. Like, we're so like obsessed with responding and reacting and like, gotta say this, we gotta make sure he knows. And it's like, no, maybe there's nothing to do. Like, just be with the moment, be with your experience and learn and have your own, have space. And you're also giving another human space to have their experience and just let it be.
That, and then just a button on it, like with men and discipline and whatnot, because I've been playing with this, Jason, as a young dad, like going so like all acceptance. And then I'm realizing, wait a minute, I appreciate the like leaders in my life that hold me accountable when I know that they love me. And this is the difference, is when I know someone loves me and they hold me accountable because they want me to be better in some way. I'm playing with this recently where I'm like, okay, two things are true. One thing is I'm not going to beat him down for XYZ or create yelling or whatever, but I do, if he's dumping out the sugar and he knows he's doing it, what does he need in that moment? He wants connection. He wants to know that maybe we care about him enough to hold him accountable. Maybe, I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
But can we play with that?
It goes back to the mystery. Like,
it goes back to like that. But like with my own boys, I'm thinking, and Savannah, and I'm thinking about, okay, accountability is a high form of, I think it's a high form of love when we're holding someone to who we think that they need to be or want to be. When they're kids, it's tough because we're trying to give them the values, but it's less and less true that we know what's best for them, and more true that they know what's best for them, if we're really being that true guide on the side for them. But if they've decided, hey, I want to be XYZ, like the teammates that hold me accountable now, that they know that I want to be whatever it is, selfless, tough, disciplined, whatever the values are, and their perception is my behavior is outside of that. I actually yearn for them to hold me accountable, because I feel like they're doing it from a place of love. They want me to be better, and we can't reach our potential alone. We need a tribe, we need teammates, but it has to be from love. So leaders listening to this, if you create a culture of love where it's this trust and people know that you care about them, it's, even though it's uncomfortable to hold folks accountable, if they know you love them, they're going to appreciate that. The part of them that wants to be their best is going to appreciate that, because it's coming from a place of love, not from a place of trying to demean somebody or put someone down or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for putting that in. Powerful, man. And it just brings home like the whole purpose of this conversation. I love that it just ended at love.
Mm.
And I wanna thank you, dude, for coming, hanging out with me and having a conversation. And I want to acknowledge you for like, when I think about why I'm even doing this and what I put on social media or how I express my voice and express myself into the world, like it's from a place of my purpose. And that to me right now is like unity. And you are unity. You are oneness, like in yourself and for the world, and you create it like through the empathy that you bring. um and damn, dude, you've just got such a huge heart. And if our world needs anything, it's just more of that. And so I just want to thank you for bringing like all the love and passion and compassion and energy that's just super aligned and connected to um, creating a vision for the world, for our families, for everyone. That's about like moving toward what matters. And yeah, shit, sounds like it's love and whatever else it might be. But thanks, brother. This was
Hey,
amazing.
this is
Appreciate you, dude.
this is an amazing space to connect, brother. I appreciate you and right back at you. All that. So the best is ahead, brother. You know that.
Yeah, best is ahead, bro. And for anyone that listened, thanks. Appreciate you. And see you on the next one. Later, dude.